Hi everyone, this is Ido Banach, and it's a pleasure to join you today. I'm going to share my screen and begin with my presentation. Okay, everyone, thank you, and I want to actually start at the end here, just so you know who you're talking to. My name is Ido Banach. I am the co-chair of the Foley Hoag Healthcare Department. I am a lawyer in practice in Washington, D.C. I've been at Foley Hoag just a short bit, but a little bit about my history I think will help sort of ground us in terms of where I'm coming from. I have spent some time in private practice where I am now. Prior to that, I was the president and CEO of the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, which represents most of the hospice and palliative care programs across the country. For 5 years, I did that both before and during and after COVID, um, which was a challenging time for all of us. And prior to that, I worked at CMS, at the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, also for 5 years, right at the outset of the Affordable Care Act. And so, what I bring today is the perspective of a lawyer in private practice, informed by the various experiences that I've had inside government, nonprofits, and sort of elsewhere. And with that, I sort of wanted to ground us in the conversation that we're going to have today. In terms of my area of expertise, and a lot of the work that I'm doing right now, it really centers around the home and community-based space, both for providers who are participating in Medicare, those who are participating in Medicaid, and those who are participating in both, and also for the entities that are paying. So Medicare Advantage plans, Medicaid managed care plans, PACE organizations, and the like. And what we're in the middle of right now, and I think what's relevant, I think hopefully to a lot of you, is that I think we're beginning to recognize as a country that for two reasons, the healthcare system, especially the Medicare system, needs to evolve to meet the needs of individuals who are getting older, who are often aging in place, and for whom the easiest thing to sometimes get is emergency care. It is easy, unfortunately, in our country to call 911 and get a hospital, an ambulance to pick you up. It is far more difficult to get home and community-based care. Medicare doesn't even pay for a lot of it. And so we make it actually hard to get the less expensive care that prevents declines, and easy to get the more expensive care that is institutional in nature. And it's changing. Why is it changing? Well, it's changing first of all, for the moral reason I just laid out. It's most people don't want the intensive medical inpatient care if they can avoid it. But it's also happening for financial reasons because our country can't afford that kind of care as more and more folks are aging and fewer people are being born to sort of cover those needs. And so what you're seeing within Medicare is more coverage of non-medical supports and services, more demonstrations that are sort of providing caregiver support, as is the case in the guide program that's providing them that in the dementia space, more assistance with um, technology. And an example of that is the access model that has just been launched out of the Innovation Center at CMS. And just across the board, more non-medical supports and services, which I think plays into what a lot of you are doing, helping consumers age in the community. And so the work that I do as a lawyer is to help folks figure out how to navigate the Medicare and the Medicaid system, how to contract, how to protect your intellectual property potentially, and how to make sure that your great ideas are helping people out in the community. And so between myself and my colleagues, and we'll get into what we do. I think there's a really good opportunity to sort of engage. And I think it's important to kind of state that it is in my interest as a lawyer and also sort of a thought partner to engage as early on in the process as possible to help shape it, to help to support you all, so that when you're successful, you will come back and use me and the firm for the various things that we do. So don't hesitate to reach out, whether it's to me or to any lawyer. If they won't take your call now, you may not want to work with them later, because I think to us it's an investment in the relationship. So I wanted to kind of talk about that at the most granular level. One level up from that, and I'm going sort of backwards in the presentation, but one level up from that in terms of the work that we do in the healthcare group is we once you establish the commercialization of your idea and getting to the point where you're in a position to bill Medicare and Medicaid, in a sense, you've gotten past one hurdle, and now you have some additional challenges to sort of get through. Because just because you can bill Medicare or Medicaid for the item or the service or the peripheral or whatever it is that you provide doesn't mean that your worries are over. You have to make sure that you have a reimbursement strategy. You have to make sure that you have sufficient uh, 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 checks and balances in place to make sure that all bills that are submitted are legitimate and you're compliant. And you have to focus on how to partner with others in a compliant way. So, and that's the work that we do here in the healthcare group. We have our kind of legal and regulatory strategy. We counsel folks around sort of compliance issues. I'm doing that in real time around hospice right now, where there's been a lot of activity out in, especially in California. If it gets to that point, we can certainly help with investigations and white collar defense and corporate advice. In other words, when you start, it's the formation, it's the how do you get reimbursement, it's all of those issues. But as you go along, it's often sort of bet the company issues that have to do with contract disputes, investigations from the government, reimbursement, or whatever. And at every step of the way, for better or worse, you're going to need to have a lawyer. And I don't think AI changes that. I think that I want to speak to that, but there is, I think, a lot of thought about whether AI can make some of the work that lawyers do or the doctors do unnecessary. And I think that while it may make some of that work more efficient, it's not going to replace judgment. And I think judgment as to whether this is a good or a bad path to take, how to weigh the risk against the reward. Those are things that I think humans ultimately have to sort of be in the room for. And so what I see happening is that lawyers are going to continue to use the tools that are available to them, as we all do. We used to do research at a library, and now we use Google or whatever we use. But that doesn't mean that we don't have agency over what we're searching for. And I think the same is going to be true and is true in terms of legal practice. The tools that we have are better. It allows us to become more efficient. Hopefully, it means that we bill you less, but we have more tools at our disposal. So that's a little bit of the regulatory and the sort of the policy work that we do. And by the way, as I go, and if there are questions that come up, please let me know if you can just kind of call those out. What I'd like to do is to go through the presentation. If any of you have questions, ask them in real time, and then I'll stop screen sharing and hopefully we can have a dialogue with Q&A. So I want to kind of go back and kind of start where we are. because before we even get into the practice of healthcare, we are thinking about how we can support any of our clients at Foley Hoag. So, in terms of our partnership with early stage companies, one of the things I think we bring to the table and that you want to kind of think about is whether the folks that you're working with know your business, whether it's AI or software or life sciences or whatever the issue is. Those are things that we have here and that we pay attention to. You know, from really large companies like Honda to kind of smaller companies, as you kind of see. I talked about AI, and we're one of the firms that have not shied away from using AI in our research and use AI really to help transform the practice of law. I think that's all true for you all. It's true of your lawyers as well. We, in terms of artificial intelligence, not only use artificial intelligence to do our work, and that could be due diligence or kind of a review of data very quickly, but also think about how your own AI governance is set up and managing the data that you have on your side. So we have been doing a fair amount of work with actual AI clients, but also kind of thinking about how AI is just a part of life for everybody. So that's certainly something that we're prepared to engage on and kind of talk about more. I want to talk about the way in which we support startups, and this is work that our technology group does in particular. Uh, this includes startup and financings, incorporation, and equity and corporate governance. It includes the growth stage. This is mergers and acquisitions and joint ventures and IPOs. We have a particularly strong intellectual property group which is crucial to identifying and protecting your key intellectual property. And I want to say some of this is going to be done in conjunction with whatever support you're receiving at your home institution to the extent that you have it. So this should be complementary. There's a time when, while you're being incubated, you're being supported by your home entity, and then as your birth time when you're going to need that support separately. Um, and that's where, as you're commercializing whatever it is that you're doing, licensing and development deals and manufacturing agreements, a focus on data privacy and cybersecurity, the policies, the compliance that we talked about, and then all the things that go along with just running a business, immigration and tax and dispute resolutions, international trade, and the like. Our firm in particular does a fair amount of international litigation and arbitration work, including for countries themselves. So, in terms of emerging companies and venture capital, we have really a top-notch team here. We often act as sort of almost an in-house general counsel to those entities. And that's everything from intellectual property, which I talked about, employment, securities, mergers and acquisitions, and the like. I talked a little bit about intellectual property. There's a lot here, but really, whatever it is that you come up with is going to want to be covered by either a sort of a patent, a trademark, a copyright, or some other form of intellectual property. Figuring out what's what, how those relate to each other, and what it is that you're going to need to deploy. I think is a part of the process for us here. Um, we continue to sort of engage with and partner with various organizations. We recently presented at South by Southwest and JP Morgan, and all the various opportunities for folks. I act as a mentor to a number of companies both through HealthWorks, at Care First, and through Cambia, which is in the Pacific Northwest. And many of us here kind of do the same. So, in addition to thinking of us and me as kind of lawyers, I think we think of ourselves, and I think of myself as a thought partner that can help figure out really the best path forward. My particular expertise is in health and aging, but we have folks that are in various categories. I wanted to stop screen sharing at this point, just so I can see um, the rest of you and ask if there are any questions, and we could certainly have a further dialogue. So let me do that. I see we've got some Q&A here, so um, uh, okay. So we have a request for the full slide deck. I'm going to ask Anne if she could send out. I think the full slide deck will be available. Um, so all the questions kind of relate to the slide deck. I will try to share again in full screen mode and see if it works. While I'm here off of the deck, are there any questions that folks have that you want to plug into the Q&A or ask live? Anne, have any questions come in?
No, just the three that you saw in the
Okay.
Q&A. And if I see anybody raise their hand, I will unmute them so that they can talk out loud.
Okay. So with that, I'm going to go back to the slide deck. Okay. So let me keep going here. And I apologize if folks can't see this. So in terms of our patent prosecution and preparation work, we have uh, just like I have prior experience, we've have most of the folks here have advanced degrees, PhDs, and the like, and prior industry experience. Being in your shoes, and prior to practicing law as scientists, especially. So we're looking at uh, uh, a fair amount of due diligence to make sure that we're providing you with sort of adequate protection. And then our work is not just on the science in a sense; it's also around commercialization. So technology transfer and license agreements, structuring of strategic alliance agreements, and structuring and negotiating and drafting research agreements. So if these are things that you're thinking about, I would say you should all be thinking about the your intellectual property rights as you're beginning this process. This is not something that is kind of a late in the process sort of thing. I talked about our regulatory and healthcare practice. I just want to double click on a couple things as we talk about this, especially as the slide is bigger and you can actually see it. Um, I believe that we're in the middle of a fundamental paradigm shift for Medicare when it comes to the provision of healthcare services, in this country. And I'm going to talk about a couple of examples, just to sort of make this clear. And I think some of these things may resonate with you. Um, One is around the site of service. The site of service from 1965 until today, the primary site of service, and by what I mean by that is where most reimbursement is, has been in the hospital setting. And in Maryland, as you all know, we have the all-payer model and a little more flexibility in a sense around rate setting and, in theory, incentivization for additional community-based spending. But even in Maryland, most of government spending is for institutional care in a hospital, and that is going to begin to change the site of service more and more. The rebalancing that we've seen in Medicaid has been from institutional settings to home and community-based settings, and I don't see that changing. We are going to see, and we're in the middle of seeing, the same rebalancing and shifting of the kind of care that we're providing to our seniors and folks with disabilities. And again, it's for the two reasons that I stated. One is moral, that's what most people want, and the other is financial, that's all we can afford. And we're going to begin to see shifting of dollars from institutional settings to the community. That means more money for primary care, more money for community-based, home-based care, palliative care in the community, even before the end of life, and caregiver support. And a lot of you are, I believe, creating technology that can make that more effective. Peripherals that folks can plug into their phones that could give them a sense of what their baseline is with respect to any number of different diseases, that'll make it easier to provide care in person or via technology in the home. And CMS is increasingly thinking about this from a disease by disease perspective, which we can debate that. But with various interventions that are targeted to kidney disease or heart disease or dementia, and various bundles of services and flexibilities that are really tailored to provide care in those areas. And when we think about the MAHA initiative, it is obviously politically loaded, but it also stands for the proposition that we want to prevent declines before they occur, and we want to pay for well care, wellness, rather than sick care when we can do so. And that has actually aligned pretty significantly with even what the prior administration was trying to do. And so I expect the progression from a policy perspective to be, kind of continuing to sort of go along that path. And what that means from a legal perspective is that a lot of you that are out there providing the technology or the medication or the science that is necessary in order for people to age in the community and to sort of continue to stem or delay whatever decline folks are dealing with, that you're going to be crucial in all of this. It is going to be that peripheral or that medication or what have you that's going to be the mechanism by which primary care physicians or ACOs or Medicare Advantage plans are actually going to effectuate their desire to slow declines. And so for a lot of you, that's going to mean contracting with some of the entities that are at the top of the food chain. Now, sometimes that's Johns Hopkins or Care First. Sometimes it's Humana or United. Sometimes it's the government itself. In the future, it might be Walmart or Amazon. We're not sure. But what we are sure about is that we want to make sure that those of you that are sort of providing care in this environment are well armed to negotiate with whoever the entity is to make sure that you're receiving fair compensation for the services that you're providing. So that's really my theory of the case. The theory is that the healthcare world is evolving, that we're going from sick care to, in a sense, healthy aging, that we're going to continue to fund urgent and emergent care because, of course, people have those needs, but we're going to provide additional funding and incentives to prevent unnecessary hospitalizations and rehospitalizations and provide more care in the community. That technology is going to be a major part of that. That a lot of you that provide those services are going to be kind of crucial in that, and that to make sure that you're not, in a sense, taken advantage by the medical industrial complex. We want to make sure that you're armed with a thought partner and a lawyer to help you to navigate that. And so with that, I am going to stop sharing. We will send the entire deck. I'm going to end here with me, which I've kind of shared before. I am Ido Banach, co-chair of the healthcare department here at Foley Hoag. We're based in Boston, but we have offices in Denver, New York, Washington, D.C., and yes, Paris. So if you want to meet me in Paris, let me know. And I'm going to stop sharing here and let's see if we can have a bit of a dialogue. Okay, we have another question. Okay, so uh, Chris asks, outside of Medicare Advantage, how do you see value-based care impacting aging providers? By which I assume providers that are caring for folks who are aging, not providers who are aging themselves. But let's assume it's both. I think that value-based care is used to be the province of Medicare Advantage plans. Medicare Advantage plans are theoretically incentivized to not only cover what's medically necessary and required by Medicare, but also some of the social and emotional needs of the population. And they would do that through, and they do that through supplemental benefits. The gap, in a sense, in that line of thinking is that each Medicare Advantage plan sort of on their own decided has decided how to define those supplemental benefits, and they're really across the board. So some are of particular value and some are of less value. It's also the case that consumers sometimes have a difficult time navigating those various supplemental benefits and really vindicating, their rights, what it is that they're supposed to be accessing. So it's an imperfect way to deliver, I would say, non-medical supports and services, which kind of opens the door to additional value-based care opportunities. And so that includes uh, ACOs, for example, which are either physician groups or other providers that are organized in order to provide value-based care with the flexibilities that allow for more than just what fee-for-service would provide. I would also include hospice and palliative care providers as entities that have both the incentives and the flexibility to provide additional supports and services that are needed by the individual or their family at a really tender moment. I would include PACE, which is the program that is all inclusive care for the elderly, which is for folks who are eligible for nursing homes that are, but not in nursing homes, additional kind of flexibilities that go in that category as well. And I think in all of these, and the guide model, which I talked about as being a demonstration coming out of the Innovation Center, I think all of those are examples of value-based care that impacts providers in the aging area in really fundamental ways, so that you could have incentives built into reimbursement that go up as individuals are receiving more care in the home and in the community, and as hospitalizations that might have otherwise happened kind of don't happen. So I don't see Medicare Advantage, especially in in Maryland, but I think nationwide, I don't see a Medicare Advantage as being as having a monopoly on this. And if anything, I see Medicare Advantage as being on the decline. And some of the other alternatives I just mentioned, PACE, for example, and ACOs as being ascendant. So that's just my thoughts there. Additional questions, please drop them in the Q&A. I would love to address those. We have a question here about, in these times, many American research scientists have been or may move to Europe instead of staying in the US. Is there any big picture tips for them as they move out of American law coverage in their patents? Well, I mean, a couple things, and thank you for that question. Um, I would say, I mean, first of all, it is a very challenging time in America, no doubt. And I hope that we will resist the urge to move. I think that there's so much important work that we need to do in this country, despite the challenges. This is a country that many of our ancestors came to because of the hope of freedom, and I think and I hope that we will get there again. Now, and that's not a political statement. It's just it is a challenging time. Now, having said that, some folks are going to leave, and as they leave, that's the question kind of contains the answer, which is, as you leave the United States for Canada or Europe, you do need to make sure that your intellectual property rights move along with you. You need to think about where the company that you've created resides and the tax implications of any move. And all of that is going to require careful accountant and lawyer sort of scrutiny and conversation. So I think it's a great point to sort of flag that this is a personal decision as to whether to move to another country with possible economic and sort of company implications, and that's something you need to think through and certainly consult with a lawyer and an accountant if you want to kind of keep doing what you've been doing from a company perspective. The flip side is true also. We represent and we work with many European companies, a French company, for example, that's doing a lot in the United States around the space, or Israeli companies, especially in the tech space. We represent them too on how to deal with U.S. issues, especially around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement. So I think whether you're going or you're coming, it's going to be necessary to make sure that you're engaging with someone here who understands both the local law and possibly the implications of going elsewhere. Thank you for that question. Are there any additional questions here for me? So what I would say in closing, if there aren't, is my contact information is on the last page of the slides, and Ann will share those with you all. If I can ever be of service, or if you think that a colleague of mine could ever be of service, please reach out. And that is around anything from thought partnership to commercialization to the ins and outs of Medicare and Medicaid policy. That's something I'd love to talk about. And whether it's me or someone else, just recognize that for us, it's worth having this conversation with you early because some of you are going to be very successful later. And we're going to hope that you're going to want to talk to us later. So leverage, the connections that you have and the ability to reach out to many folks as you're just starting out. You're not in this alone. If you are, you have your communities, and you also have a lot of experts out there who are more than happy to take your call and help you as you're on your journey. And I wanted to thank Johns Hopkins for inviting me to this talk, and I'm certainly happy to take any of your calls if you have them down the line. So, Ann, thank you for that.
Thank you for joining us. And I just want to remind everyone that the recording of this presentation, including the slides, will be posted on our Johns Hopkins University AITC website within the next couple of weeks. Thanks again for joining us.